Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. The American President Donald Trump just made a very important statement in which he demanded an immediate deal in relation to the Gaza Strip without really specifying who he's directing his talk to. Now, in Israel, it has been received as a direct order towards Benjamin Netanyahu, asking him to come up with a deal. Clearly, the ending of the war between Israel and Iran, after Israel got a heavy beating from Iran in the 12-day war, included having a deal with the Gaza Strip, especially because the mediators who were talking about a ceasefire between Israel and Iran were also linked with the Gaza Strip, and clearly we are seeing certain signs about a deal that can include some countries in the region that would have a potential peace treaty in Israel. However, again, Israel is still talking about this as if it's a done deal, although the reality is far-fetched, and their claims are far-fetched, and the reality is much further away from that. We're going to talk all about this, but we're going to begin with the statement of Donald Trump and what Benjamin Netanyahu was offered. In recent days, we've been speaking about the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is being offered this deal, this rescue rope by Donald Trump. And now we're getting more signs of what that entails. And that could well be the end of Benjamin Netanyahu's political career altogether, especially because of the demands internally from Israel for Benjamin Netanyahu to be removed from the political life altogether. This was a demand that's been there for many years, but now more and more calls, and again, confirmations that this is something that's being put on the table as part of a deal between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, so there can be no court cases against Benjamin Netanyahu in the future. However, he would have to resign and get out of the political life inside of Israel. Let's begin with Donald Trump. And of course, I'm going to also talk to you about the resistance in Gaza. Today, we had another security operation, a security-sensitive censorship operation in Khan Yunis. I'm going to talk to you about that and about Benjamin Netanyahu's closest aides, colleagues from his political party, saying exactly the situation that Hamas is in at the moment, and of course the gap between them and what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, because there could potentially be a deal, and he doesn't want to make it appear that he's getting out of the Gaza Strip with the Palestinian resistance still present there. Let's begin with this here. Donald Trump, they're calling it an earthquake in Israel. He's demanding an immediate deal in the Gaza Strip. Trump demands Israel close an immediate deal to return the kidnapped as the IDF increases attacks in Gaza. Lieberman joins the call, and the IDF spokesman warns residents to flee south due to military escalation. So in Israel, they're taking it out as if it's a call towards Israel. Make a deal in Gaza, return the kidnapped. And Benjamin Netanyahu, he had a statement after that, and he was responding in a positive manner to President Donald Trump, saying that, oh, thank you, Donald Trump, and thank you for everything that you've been doing to us. Thank you for all of the support that you have done with Iran. We've done something amazing. We've done something incredible. And, making it appear as if, they're on the same side exactly, with no problems whatsoever. Now, in the meantime, and today as well, Benjamin Netanyahu had a meeting in an undisclosed location in the south of Israel with figures from the Israeli Shin Bet or the Shabak. Not many statements, but the statements that he did make were very important, and they were almost in line with the demand of Donald Trump to end this war. He said to the Shin Bet leaders in this undisclosed location in the south of occupied Palestine, many opportunities have opened up, first of all, to rescue the kidnapped. He was talking about a bigger solution. He was speaking about the involvement of the Israeli Shin Bet in the operations that Israel is conducting in the region, their involvement in Iran. But he's saying that they need to solve Gaza first. And notice the terminology, please. We will have to resolve the Gaza issue and defeat Hamas. No more eliminating Hamas, no more evaporating Hamas, no more making Hamas disappear. No, defeating. Now, good luck with the defeating even, even the sentence itself, defeating Hamas. So clearly the man is trying to climb down the tree that he climbed with this huge aim of eliminating Hamas. That's never going to happen. And now he's saying we're just going to defeat Hamas. So he spoke with them about this important opportunity that Israel is facing, as if, Israel is going to have to make important decisions, similar to the statement that I spoke to you about that he made the other day, the 30-second statement in which he stated that there is a very important window of opportunities and every day is important, as if, all of a sudden everything became so critical and now they need to make a deal all of a sudden. Urgency and trying to press on, his political allies. But, no one's going to believe that this is just about Gaza or, just Iran. No. Things are linked together and there's a package here. And that package, if you would title it, the title of that package would be Rescuing Netanyahu, because he stretched this genocide inside of the Gaza Strip for his own political sake, not for the victory of Israel or for defeating Hamas or whatever. He wanted himself to survive. He knew very well that all of the political and military goals inside of the Gaza Strip, Israel exhausted itself already. The IDF is exhausted. The IDF is defeated, humiliated. Their faces are in the mud of inside of the Gaza Strip. Over half of the Israelis refuse to go and serve. Constantly people protesting against conscription. Every attempt that they're trying to come up with fails. Threats to collapse the government. It's a mess. It's a crisis. It's a mess the state is living in. So it's all about Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, part of the deal that has been mentioned included Benjamin Netanyahu being saved from the Israeli courts. No more courts against Benjamin Netanyahu now. And, the man can walk freely without no problem. Thankfully, now we have a bit more leaks about this, yet not many people are talking about. Of course, we're not talking about corporate or mainstream media, God forbid, they've died a long time ago. Who pays attention to these people anyway? But in general, not many people have spoken about this. So let's share this a bit of information and check how relevant would this be, especially in relation to Benjamin Netanyahu. So there was this report in one of the Israeli websites called Wallah, Amnesty or Plea Bargain. The title was The 3 Ways to Overturn Netanyahu's Trial. Now, in this article here, in this report, they're speaking about the ways that Benjamin Netanyahu can get out of the legal mess that he is inside of Israel, so that a deal can be accomplished and this whole dramatic peace process all of a sudden that Israel is speaking about. And according to them, there are 3 options. These options begin with the following. The first option would be a plea agreement. And according to this report, the plea agreement would include the following. Let's have a look. Here we go. A plea bargain, that's the first option. And I'll talk to you about the second 2 other options. A plea bargain is an agreement that the prosecution makes together with the defendant in a case. As part of the arrangement, the defendant admits to some of the charges, and in exchange, the prosecution drops some of the charges, and the parties agree between themselves on the severity of the sentence that the prosecution will request from the court. A plea bargain must be approved by the court to which the arrangement is submitted. In very rare cases, the arrangement is not approved by the court. Regarding Netanyahu's cases, the plea agreement that was issued to him, according to various media reports, included retirement from political life, and therefore he opposes it. So, what do we understand here? That the retirement of Benjamin Netanyahu from political life is one of the first things that are being offered to him so that he can get out of all of this mess inside of Israel. That's the first option. And despite the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is opposing it, it's still something that's on the table. And that's something that Donald Trump knows very well. The second option in this case is mediation. The mediation option, they spoke about this here. They said Shaul Ilovich defense attorney Jacques Chen proposed transferring the case to mediation while it is ongoing in court, a suggestion also made by the judges. The Attorney General and the prosecution, for their part, opposed this. A mediation process is a process in which a sitting judge examines all of the evidence and testimonies heard in the case and offers the parties a ladder and a way to end it by agreement. So that was the second option, after the option of him with the plea agreement and him retiring from the political life. And the third option, according to this report, is amnesty. Amnesty is the procedure which the case can be concluded is that granting of a pardon by President Yitzhak Herzog. The president has the authority to grant pardon in advance, even while the case is ongoing, and requires the signature of the Minister of Justice on his side. Herzog, for his part, insists that the case should be concluded as part of a plea bargain, whereas the pardon process begins with an application from the accused. So, clearly there are many options here on the table, and these options included as well secret meetings that were held between Benjamin Netanyahu or his attorney team to be more specific, with previous judges in the Supreme Court in Israel, top-level figures in the judicial system in Israel, and current serving political leadership, because they're talking about a very big deal that would include, again, things outside of the Gaza Strip. However, one thing that is very important to note here, that all of this talk and all of this, inflation, how Israel is completely taking things out of context sometimes, could be because Benjamin Netanyahu wants a ladder down from the Gaza Strip, by the way, and he would get what he wants in terms of protection, his personal interests, and saving himself from being imprisoned inside of Israel. And that's not something that, is just an option. Many people are speaking about this. There was also an article in the Jerusalem Post saying that now the existential Iranian threat is over. Of course, propaganda. It's time for Netanyahu to resign. So actually calling on Benjamin Netanyahu to resign. Now, these meetings that are being held between Benjamin Netanyahu's team, senior figures in Israel, that's only in relation to the court case or the future of Benjamin Netanyahu as part of this deal. However, the deal itself, it's not just between the mediators, by the way, of Israel or the Palestinian side or the Egyptians or the Qataris. The deal that is being spoken about now is a deal that is at the highest level possible. So Netanyahu, Trump, some people are getting, the deals in the highest order possible, going over the mediation team and telling the mediation team what's going to happen. So we're no longer talking about, people talking about small nitty-gritty details. No, clearly the authorizations and the orders are going to come from above, and they're going to override all of these small niggly details that have been mentioned so many times previously. And of course, Netanyahu, in relation to this ceasefire, he's talking about the defeat of the Hamas and not the elimination of Hamas. But many people beg to differ, and people who are in the security and the foreign committee inside of Israel, especially the statements that were made by the Likud member of the Israeli Knesset, Amit Halevi, who previously made similar remarks that we spoke about in the beginning of the war in relation to the situation of Hamas inside of the Gaza Strip. What did he have to say, and what does that mean, and is that something that Benjamin Netanyahu should be worried about? Well, he made these statements here. Let's have a look. We did not achieve the goals in Gaza, according to Halevi. Hamas is at the peak of its power. According to Halevi, Operation Gideon's chariots did not advance any of the war's goals. He added, Hamas is at the peak of its power, controlling the territory, the population, and the resources as well. This is very important. Why? Because, well, firstly, the man is not saying that Hamas still has power. He's saying that Hamas is at the peak of its power, meaning that we're talking about a totally different reality than what is being portrayed by Benjamin Netanyahu and by the IDF chief of staff and by all of these people. You're talking about a situation where Hamas is powerful, Hamas is on the ground, and there is no way for Benjamin Netanyahu to try and get himself out of this mess by declaring that we defeated the Hamas. And he's mentioning the move by the Al-Qassam brigades where they came and planted an explosive device inside an Israeli troop carrier that happened a few days ago, proving that they have no answer against these people. You know, and that's happening in Khan Yunis. Clearly, 2 years after the war, Hamas at the peak of its power, as confirmed by an Israeli member of the Security Committee and a member of the Israeli Likud party, a close member of a close ally of Benjamin Netanyahu in his party. That is a very important statement, and it shows you the reality that Netanyahu himself tries to hide. Because where Netanyahu has political interest, has, you know, his own interest to speak about this defeat and accomplishments and what have you, some people are not interested in that, or interested in giving people a reality check. And this same MK, by the way, was the one who stated before, that's over a year ago, and I mentioned it at the time, how Benjamin Netanyahu manipulates the reports that he gets from the Israeli intelligence in relation to the progress of the IDF inside of the Gaza Strip. And an example that he gave is, if the IDF comes to Benjamin Netanyahu and they give him a report, for example, we had a battle in Rafah with a group of Al-Qassam brigades, for example, and we killed 20 or 30 or 40, unverifiable anyway, okay? But assuming that it's totally verified, and of course they lie, but assuming that, you know, that's verified, Netanyahu would use that report that came to him from the Israeli intelligence or the Israeli army, and he would say, we dismantled another brigade. And according to Halevi, that's not dismantling a brigade. You can't say that if you killed 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 out of a brigade that can consist up to 1,000 fighters, that you dismantled them. You simply killed some of them. And also, there is a level of inconsistency with the reports that are coming from the Israeli army too, because these people clearly target the civilians in the majority cases. I mean, 99.9% of the time, child-killing terrorists. That's what they are. They starve children to death. They shoot people for fun, infants, babies, women, burn people alive. That's the norm for these genocide savages. So he's proving that. He is proving exactly what is happening on the ground based on the reports that are coming from the Israeli army and based on the evidence that's coming from the Israeli intelligence in relation to the progress inside of the Gaza Strip. And that's a picture of this man, Amit Halevi, who spoke about all of this in relation to Hamas and Hamas being at the peak of its power. These are very strong statements coming straight from the horse's mouth. You know, sometimes when we talk, some people say, oh, you're exaggerating and over-exaggerating and false hopes and copium and what have you. From the horse's mouth, straight from the horse's mouth. Go listen to them, please. That's what your mainstream media doesn't show you, to try and show Israel as this, you know, power, when we clearly saw exactly how hard they were hit by Iran and how hard they're constantly being hit by the Palestinian resistance. I mean, Iran has done, ladies and gentlemen, if we just want to take 7 out of the 12 days, what Iran has done in 7 days, all of the Arab armies didn't do in 70 years. Geez, they really woke the whole world up of how much of a paper tiger this country is. Nothing whatsoever. And I'm going to talk to you about Iran in a second, by the way. But before we get into that, we were speaking about the peak power of Hamas and the peak power of the Palestinian resistance inside of the Gaza Strip. Now more images and videos being published by the Palestinian resistance of drones. Ladies and gentlemen, drones watching over the Israeli army inside of the Gaza Strip when they're carrying out operations. So can you imagine that they're sitting there inside of the Gaza Strip in the places where Israel has been in for how long? In and out of for over a year, recording everything that's happening and carrying out operations as if, you know, there's nothing to hinder the progress of the Palestinian resistance or stop them or, you know, even remotely affect what they're doing. Now there is another serious security incident, right? Serious security incident is basically when dozens have been buried. When Israel tells you serious security incident, then know immediately dozens of child killers inside of the Gaza Strip have been killed. Otherwise, you know, they wouldn't report anything. But if something so major has happened in Gaza that it would be inevitable for them to confirm that something happened, like they did when the child killers were burnt to death inside of the APCs a couple of days ago, with 2 fighters literally putting explosive devices inside them and running away, and Israel basically withdrawing them alive, dead, burnt completely, not even trying to rescue them. They dragged the whole APC out, by the way. Now there's a new incident, security incident. As resistance operations intensify, they're increasing the level of fierceness against Israel. And this attack, by the way, came in coordination between the Al-Qassam brigades and Saraya al-Quds, the armed wing of Hamas and the armed wing of the PIJ. Complex ambushes again against the terrorist Israeli soldiers inside of the Gaza Strip, including Yasin 105 launching ambushes, direct fire exchange, zero distance. That's becoming the norm. And what's very important to note here is that this is the 3rd security incident declared by Israel in Khan Yunis in the past 2 weeks. At least the 3rd. And of course, they had many more operations. What does this say? Well, Israel is confirming that these people, by default, by saying this is a serious security incident, they're confirming that they're at the peak of their power, like the Likud MK said. Hamas is at the peak of their power. Where is the talk of Benjamin Netanyahu of controlling 75% of the territory of Gaza? Do you know what they said, the army? Oh, now we have a plan. Either we reach a deal or we occupy the remaining 25% of Gaza Strip. What do you mean by occupy? What does that? They do not occupy any inch that they can stay in with no resistance. That's the first and most important thing. Which means, let's say you are in a certain part and you have progress of your TikTok depraved child killing terrorists inside of the Gaza Strip, and you're unable to remain there with your forces in a stable condition. What are you doing exactly? You're invading, you're going in, you're going out, you're going in, you're going out. Why do you go in and go out? Because you're getting a beating. That's why. You're getting a beating, you're getting a huge blow from the Palestinians, constant blows, blow after blow from the Palestinian resistance. Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to portray this as somewhat of a development, right? But the main thing is, this shows you that there is no hope for Israel in Gaza. I mean, the Palestinian resistance to this day, the fact that they're fighting them with such intensity, the fact that they are conducting large-scale operations that reach a level of a security incident in Israel worthy of censorship, that shows you exactly how strong the Palestinian resistance are. The Palestinian resistance is, despite all of the genocide and destruction and starvation, and how weak Israel is and how incapable Israel is and how much of a paper tiger it is, only trying to portray strength. Like now, Benjamin Netanyahu is still trying to, over-exaggerate what they've done inside of Iran, despite the fact that they were the ones that unilaterally declared a ceasefire, despite the fact that they begged the Americans to participate as a rescue rope again, and despite the fact that they haven't achieved any of their military objectives. Can you imagine that? How hard do these people try to spin? None of their declared military objectives, taking down the regime, destroying the nuclear program, and destroying the ballistic missile capabilities, none of that has been achieved. You hyper-pathological liar. And then he goes and tells you, we had all of this progress. And now Iran, thankfully, are publishing more information, especially because of all of this propaganda and garbage talk about Iran, and lack of accomplishment. And they destroyed their air defense systems and. Now, Iranian commander Mohammad Reza Naqvi said that Tehran actually only used 5% of its defensive power in response to the Israeli aggression. Now, you might ask yourself, I would assume, some people would immediately ask, 5%, well, why did you only use 5%? And how can they be, genuine about using only 5%? Well, it can make a lot of sense. Why? Because the initial attack of Israel, it was a Mossad operation by drones. That means that the drones wouldn't have necessarily triggered the Iranian air defense systems that much. Israel exaggerated, by the way, how much of its air force it's used inside of Iran. And when it was activated, it was activated against the bigger drones, for example, the Hermes or the F-16s or the F-35s or the F-15s, because there were reports of also clashes, dogfights, basically, between the Iranian F-14s, the Tomcats, or what are called the Persian Tomcats, and the F-15s of Israel too, alongside the Iranian air defenses. Contrary to all of the garbage, of course, and the propaganda that is constantly being repeated on, mainstream media and in Zionist circles as well. This is coming simultaneously with important meetings that happened after many countries took part in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in China. And these countries are showing more and more coordination now after the Israeli-American attack against Iran, and they're realizing that they need to coordinate even further between themselves to avoid or to successfully thwart any future attempts of aggression and to be prepared. And not only that, there were also meetings within the meeting of the organization itself, and this was one of them here. Iran's defense minister met with the Russian, Pakistani, and Chinese counterparts. It was a closed meeting between them. And in an interview, the Brigadier General Aziz Nasirzadeh, he highlighted the activities from the summit, and he stated that in our address at the summit, we proposed that given the recent ineffectiveness and poor performance of international organizations, the SCO can serve as a viable alternative for establishing peace, security, and stability. And if we start with this first statement here by the Iranian Minister of Defense, that is clearly the case. Well, the United Nations didn't stop a genocide. The ICJ didn't stop a genocide. The ICC did not stop a genocide, despite all of the organizations having more than adequate action being taken by member states, and the vast majority, as a matter of fact, of member states against this barbarism being conducted by Israel and the United States in Palestine and elsewhere too. Therefore, there has to be a counterweight, and that counterweight, it's not surprising that it's being proposed here by ministers of defense in Russia, China, Pakistan, and Iran. He continued, we discussed various issues with them, and they strongly condemned the Zionist regime's attack on Iran, emphasizing there was no justification for such aggression. They described the attack as unjust and a violation of international norms. They also praised the Iranian people's courage and resilience in recent days, commending their response to the aggression. I mean, of course, who's not going to praise this response? People were celebrating, weren't they? Not just in China or in Iran, all across the world, people were celebrating this attack. But this is quite important because one of the other reports that spoke about this meeting that took place in China spoke about the growing cooperation and the fact that the cooperation between these countries is growing at a faster pace than ever, meaning that the actions of the United States and its allies, of course, is pushing these countries to coordinate deeper and deeper and prepare for any future potential aggression coming against them, both from the United States and Israel. Despite the fact that the operation inside of Iran was a huge failure, at the end of the day, they have to take the relevant measures and prepare, because the United States is not a trustworthy ally as an administration. They previously had many agreements that they breached, let alone the fact that they allow Israel to get away with murder all of the time and still conduct a genocide inside of the Gaza Strip. And these were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about in this live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Thank you for everyone who participated in the chat. Michael, thank you so much for your super. In the meantime, everyone will hopefully be with you. I might have segments for you as well. Back to some segments to make it easier for anyone who likes shorter videos. In the meantime, everyone, stay blessed, take care, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.